and I had as much money as you could wanna spend, so I'm building a fort. And so he said, "Bruce, I can electrify the staircase."
Hi, everybody. I'm Todd Dankin, and welcome back to another edition of Becoming the King of Pot. With me, as always, my infamous cousin and King of Pot, Bruce Perlowin. Bruce, welcome to the show once again.
Thank you, Todd. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm very excited because we have a really special guest on today.
Yes, we do. We're going to meet him in just a second. But before we do, if you're watching us for the first time or the 100th time, thank you for that. And please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It really helps us at Becoming the King of Pot. And if you're looking for any merchandise, make sure you go over to BecomingTKOP.com. You can get some t-shirts and hats and stash bags and all kinds of cool stuff. Again, that's BecomingTKOP.com. So thanks for that. So yes, Bruce with us in the studio, the youngest of all of the Perlowins, the the genius of the Perlowin clan, the Mensa student, the really good athlete too, right? I played a lot of football in
Yep.
his day. So Jed Perlowin, welcome to Becoming the King of Pot, my fifth cousin in the Perlowin clan.
If there's any more, you're gonna have to take off your shoes to start counting.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Great to see you. How's everything? And you are coming to us from somewhere in Florida, right?
Yep, South Florida.
Nice, nice. Well, welcome to the podcast where we've been documenting Bruce's rise to fame and fortune and infamy as he has become the King of Pot, and we thought we'd get your perspective as you were the younger brother to the King of Pot. So I'm not sure if that makes you a prince or if that makes you a knight or a duke. Uh, I'm not sure how that works. Let's start. Back in the family life when we used to hang out, right? What was it like, with your first sort of, wow, Bruce is my big brother? What was it like having Bruce as a big brother?
It was interesting. I was always into different things. Used to take the friggin' encyclopedias into the bathroom to read, and, I always enjoyed learning things, and, for one of my birthdays, Bruce took me to a pyramid power seminar with, Patrick. I don't remember his last name, Patrick something,
Flanagan.
and Flanagan. And, and that was really interesting. And then I remember we stayed in a hotel, and we were checking out. He parked his truck behind the, um, the motel and took all of the linen and the pillows and everything. And I go, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Oh, they expect people to do that. So they put it in the price of the room." And so I'm like, "Oh my God." I was like embarrassed, but he took everything. And that's interesting. That's the part I remember.
Yeah,
But it
that
was
is.
really cool because
Bruce, wait,
he
wait,
had
wait, wait,
an
Bruce, why were you taking linens and pillows and everything from hotels? What's going on there?
Well, it starts with the tissue, then you go to the toilet paper, then you go to a towel, you go, "Wait a minute, let me get the sheets and the pillowcases." I guess I got, carried away.
So you are single-handedly responsible for the prices of hotel rooms being out of control these days.
To this day, I just brought home a box from when I was in Orlando last week of tissues. You know?
no pillow though, I hope.
No, no.
Okay. That is
I
so funny. All right, so you're traveling with your big brother, and he's emptying out a, hotel room, and you're thinking, "Wow, he must be a criminal."
Uh, no, actually, I didn't think about that part, but it was interesting. And then he had a neighbor who built a negative ion generator one time. And, so it was really interesting because he hung out with a lot of smart people who, I enjoyed talking to. And, I was wowed by a lot of the things that were going on. And, and I guess I kind of knew what he was doing, and I didn't think much of it because, I mean, I was just focused. I mean, I was like a horse with blinders, just focused
Yeah.
on, getting out of high school, going to college, getting a degree, and, I was just like totally focused on that.
Right. And
And
what was it like the first time you learned that, Bruce was this, marijuana kingpin?
I I don't think it was like a, oh my God, all of
Moment?
a sudden,
Right, right.
because I remember one time he had a house in Gainesville, and I was up there with my parents, and there was a big party, um, and, I wanted to smoke pot. My parents said, "No, no, no." So I drank. They let me drink. And then finally, enough people were talking to him. They said, "Okay." So I went and I smoked, I smoked. I was probably 14, 13, I don't know. And I got so friggin' sick. And it wasn't because of the marijuana. Everyone said, "Oh, look, you don't smoke anymore." It was because I was
Right,
drunk.
right.
I got, I'd lay down and everything would spin around. And so that was it. No more liquor, no more marijuana for me. Um, but that was my first time. That was the house in Gainesville. You remember that? I'm sure you remember that. Um, were you ever in
At
there,
what
Todd?
point I'm not in the house in Gainesville, no.
Okay.
I'd never been up there. I was, I'm much younger than all of you guys, so I was just the little cousin, you know?
Uh,
Uh, so I didn't do a lot of that stuff until I was a grown up. Right. So you're the youngest of 5, right? You got, your older brothers that you look up to, that who did you wanna emulate the most out of the folks that, you were looking up to in your brothers and sister?
I mean, I didn't. Like I said, I was focused on, oh, I'm so smart and I'm going to invent something by
Right.
the time I'm 20 and be a millionaire. The problem with that is you actually have to invent something, and,
Right.
but I was just, like I said, I was
Right, right.
focused on what I was focused on. I didn't really pay
Yeah,
attention too much about what was going on. But
interesting.
I looked up to Bruce. I mean, I did look up to Bruce because, he was a successful businessman, and he had oh shit, what was his name? The Magic Woodsman. And then I remember he had a warehouse in Hialeah. I used to, when I was 16, I would go down there and try to run. And then I would take, God, I don't remember the name of that guy. I would go out to the swap shop on Sunrise, and we would
Yeah.
sell the tables
Yeah, yeah,
out
yeah.
there.
Yeah, I
And
remember.
you know, so yeah, I mean, I looked up to him, and the one who I was closest to, I think, was Gary, because after college, he came back and lived at home, and he taught me how to drive. And so we spent a lot of time until he got married, and then that was the end of
Yeah,
him. And
right, got
Craig
it.
and Bruce
It
were,
was the end of him. That's funny.
yeah,
He got married. You you say it like he died, right? He was
uh, and yeah, Craig and Bruce, I didn't see that much because they were out of the house.
they were out smuggling weed, right?
Yeah, yeah, they were busy making
Right.
money.
So what was the family discussion around what Bruce was doing? Like, with
I,
you and your parents and even
it
with
was a
Gary, because I know Gary wasn't that involved.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't really talk about it that much, but, like, one time we came home from vacation and there was an Olympic-sized trampoline folded up in our living room, and I was with, we had a cousin, Harry. He would come down every summer, and just, get a suntan because he wanted to, well, he wanted to get real dark, and, he
Yeah, he
was,
lived in
like, looking
Philly, right?
around, and then there was a scale with 19 pounds of marijuana in my closet, and that was the last we saw of Harry. He didn't come down after
Right.
that, and then I'm always looking around and doing things, and we have this credenza, and I looked in the credenza, I found a stack of money in there, and I go, "Ooh," and it was Bruce had lost, like, $10,000, and because he had hidden it there and forgot where he put it. And so, so I guess I knew what was going on. And the funny thing was in high school, there was this kid who was sitting behind me, taps me on the shoulder, and I turn around, and he opens up and he shows me this little cigarette case full of joints. And he's like, "Oh, look at me. I've got 5 joints in here." And I'm thinking, so, I've seen a lot more than that, buddy. But I didn't say anything. I kept my mouth, I never said anything. I kept my mouth shut. I was a good little brother. And, but I still remember that, this guy's like trying to show off to me. And I'm like, oh my God,
Yeah.
you have no
Yeah.
idea.
You're like,
I
"Oh,
need to tell a
yeah?"
story, Saad.
Yeah, of course, of
Okay,
course.
so Karen, the older sister, is 18 months older than me. I'm 18 months older than Gary. Gary's 18 months older than Craig. So we're all 18 months apart. And then Jed comes 10 years after me. I'm exactly 10 years, 5 days older than Jed. All right. And so as the older brothers, our job is to tease him, right?
Of
Did
course.
David
They
ever
used to
tease
tease
you?
the shit out
Of
of me.
course. No, I was the younger brother, so I totally know.
Yeah.
So-
Wait a minute, I got to tell you one quick story. They locked me in a room. Gary had a tape recorder, and they were holding the door closed, and my sister was trying to get it open, and they turned the lights out, and on the tape recorder, it's like, "I'm the boogeyman, Jed, I'm going to get you." Oh my God. I still remember that. I mean, I must have been like 6 or 7 at the time.
That's funny. Yeah, actually, David and I used to team up against Lisa. So that was the way I avoided getting picked on, was I teamed up with David, right? And then we picked on Lisa together.
Well, do you remember the time you and I tied Lisa up to outside? There's like
Yes.
a stand, and then
Yeah, it was the front of our house, those bars in the front of my yeah, that's right.
and she was good until we lifted up her second leg, and then all of her weight was on the ropes, and then
What the hell's the matter with you guys? You tied up your little sister?
Well, she was my big sister, so there.
yeah, and you used
Your
to play
big sis-
darts with her, right?
Oh God. Great. You got to bring up the dart story. Jeez. Jeez.
Oh, what
I don't
happened?
feel
I heard
bad
something
enough in
about
my
the
life,
darts.
right? So
Tell-
she's going to be mad she'll be mad that I'm telling the story, but I'll tell the story. Is that we were just kids, and I threw. We had a dartboard, and we were playing around, and I threw a dart, and it went in her eye. And Lisa, I'm terribly, terribly sorry. I know you might be watching this, and it was an accident.
And Lisa, I
but
remember
she's
that
had
story.
Yeah, she's had a few surgeries. She's actually going through a problem with it now. She's hating that I'm saying this right now. But Lisa, I love you.
And so do we. Okay, so
Anyway,
now,
so what was your story? Sorry.
all right, so the older brother's job is to tease the little brother, all right, as we
Yeah.
all described, and as all of America knows, that's their job.
Yes.
So we told Jed that when he was born, there was twins, a human and a monkey, and the human died. So
Oh.
we shaved him, we cut his tail, and he's really a monkey. He's not a human.
No, I am not a monkey. Okay.
So when he was around 12 years old, and he would always cry to mom, I said, "Look, Jed, let's look at this logically." I go, "Do you like bananas?" He goes, "Yeah." I go, "Do you like to climb trees?" He goes, "Yeah, Mommy, they're calling me a monkey again." To make it worse, so we always told him he was the monkey. To make it worse, my mother named Gary Mark Perlowin, and Craig is Craig Michael Perlowin, and Jed's middle name, because she ran out of names, is Jed M. Perlowin. It's just an initial. What does America think the M stands for after I just told you that story? Of course,
I'm thinking
monkey.
it's monkey. Jed Monkey Perlowin. I love it.
So we terrorized him his whole life. And to this day, as you can see, he's traumatized. He's still eating bananas.
And do you
It's
have
for
a
the
really serious
potassium.
do you have a really serious shaving regimen, Jed?
Okay.
So Bruce, what was it like? What was it like trying to hide your life from your little brother?
Well, actually, I didn't hide it very well at all. I didn't. In fact, I'll tell you a story, another story, which involves Jed, and I may get in big trouble for this from the woman involved. I was selling pot. We were living in the same apartment
Um,
that Harry came down, and the trampoline showed up in the living room, and and so I was dealing a lot of pot with Carol Lane. I had told that story earlier on some of the earlier podcasts. How I went to her house. She had 1,000 pounds up in the attic. So we were moving big weight back and forth. And me and Carol were we were not boyfriend girl. We were lovers. But back then, everybody was lovers with everybody else. It didn't mean anything. It wasn't like your girlfriend type of thing. So uh, so I had that
You were
50 I had
you
actually a
were having
50-pound
sex,
bail
basically
in
what you're saying.
that apartment. Yeah, we were having sex, yeah. I mean, look, it was the '60s, right? It was Quaaludes. So I go,
Hey,
"Jed,
I'm
can
no
you
no
go and pick
judgment
up
here.
Carol?"
I'm just trying to get the visual.
"Can you go drive and pick up Carol and bring her back so I can show her this sample of this 50-pound bale?" So, um And he goes, "Yeah, sure." So he goes and picks her up. She comes in the room. Now she's on Quaaludes, okay? She goes, Bruce, your brother's a virgin. Okay, I go, can I please sleep with them?" I go, "I promise I'll be gentle." I I go, "Oh my God, Carol, can you? That would be great." "Why would that be great?" "Because my dad got laid when he was 16. I got laid when I was 16. Gary got laid when he was 16. Craig got laid when he was 16 for the first time. There is no way Jed at 16 at this time is going to get laid. He's just way too shy, doesn't know how to converse with people. He knows how to work on machines, but not how to work with people." So I go, "Carol, please, would you?" She goes, "Great." So she goes to the other room, and she comes out 10 minutes later. She goes, "Bruce, he won't do it because he thinks I'm your girlfriend." So I go in there and have a heart-to-heart talk with Jed. "Jed, you she's not my girlfriend. She's just we sleep together once in a blue moon, and like I do with 3 or 4 other women." And so he was happy he got to have sex. Now, this is a big scandal in the family. What are we gonna do about Jed not getting laid at 16? She passes out. My mother comes home. The next morning, Carol goes, years later, she goes, "Your mother woke up and is thanking me." She's saying, "Thank you." So that
my
was the
mother
story.
came running into the room the next morning and congratulated me. My
Nice.
mother.
Good old Aunt Helen giving you a high five for getting laid. Who knew? I don't think I've ever seen that side of Aunt Helen.
Oh, God.
Well,
She was
clearly
so
every 18
excited.
months she was popping out a baby, so, they were pretty busy themselves, Helen and Leroy.
And 10 years
Yeah.
later with Jed.
Mm.
Alright, so, um, and then Jed used to have, another little story. Uh, Jed used to have a girlfriend named Debbie, and Debbie would come over to this is a few years later, to the, condo where he was staying with my mother, and Craig was there. Craig, the guy with 43 was it 43 or 39
34.
girlfriends?
34
43.
girlfriends.
34
Although he
girlfriends.
lied. He lied.
Yeah, it was only we think we said it was only 29. So but he didn't count these. So Debbie would come over, Craig was dating Debbie, and she would bring like 6 or 7 girls with her, and they would go shoot pool together. And Craig would take one girl and say, "You wanna go?" He would pick one. He goes and he take her by the hand, says, "You wanna go back to the condo?" And he'd walk out. The next time they'd come over, he'd pick another girl, and he'd walk out. And Jed looked at Craig and said, "Is it that easy? What do you remember about that, Jed?" Because Craig was really
Y
pretty wild.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Did
So,
you
yeah,
know that it was that easy to get laid?
no. No. I won't tell that story. When, Corinne and Valerie came over, and they were on Quaaludes, and we went swimming, and then Corinne, who I really always had the hot oh, this is
Is
going
that
I
the younger
can't say
sister?
this. Yeah, there's the younger sister.
Oh, he told me about that. Yeah, he got the other sister too, Todd.
Yeah.
Debbie's younger sister, because they had broken up, and,
Yeah. Yeah.
so, she came
So it
over and
seems like just hanging around Craig, you can, scoop up on whatever falls off of Craig.
Yep. Yeah. And drugs. The only
That
time I
seems
ever
like a
did
good plan.
drugs was around Craig and Gary.
Ah, what kind of drugs were they doing?
Coke. Quaaludes.
But you didn't smoke the
I mean,
marijuana.
I didn't like marijuana.
You started cocaine? Todd, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah, the first time was, I was heading to your house. I used to do errands for him, run around. And the first time I did it was, I went to pass somebody and there's a cop that had someone pulled over. And so he just pulled me over for the hell of it and made me sit there for 15 minutes. Didn't give me a ticket or anything, just, and I was really pissed off. And I was like really a straight, you know, goody two shoes. And, been offered marijuana and pot multiple times, and I always said, "No, no, no." And then, after this, I got the bruises. I was really mad, and he had this big stack of, marijuana. I think it was right after the Aubrey case, and you were celebrating, and, so I didn't turn it down, and that was that. That was the
Wait,
first
was
Oh,
that
that could
time.
have been
cocaine
what
or was that Quaaludes?
that could have been
Cocaine,
one of Craig's cocaine hooker parties.
you know?
Yeah, I'm sure it was. I another part of what Jed was, because he was not involved with the company. I don't think he was running money or running drugs,
Yeah.
but he did do peripheral stuff like the electrical staircase in Ukiah. After Reese was born, I was worried about security, so he was coming out there. Tell him about the Ukiah and your experiences out there at that incredible place that we
Oh,
lived in.
wow. Used to love, would go out to Ukiah, like, uh before and after I would go to college, like a week before I'd go to college, I'd go up there and because I was working, and so it was like I take between stopping work and going to college, I'd go to Ukiah for a week, and
What year? What year are we talking about?
it's 80, give or take a year, because I started college in '79, so it was probably
Got it.
like 80, 81, and I would go out there and I would. He had a 9 millimeter. That was my friend, and, so I had him next to me, and, one night, I hear Becky screaming, and I'm like, "Holy cow, they can't be having sex because she's, like, 9 months pregnant." So I'm going up the stairs with this 9 millimeter in my hand, and then I figure out, yeah, they're having sex, and I went back down.
So, what was your solution for the staircase?
Elect Put some, high-powered, low current, electrodes to it, get like a Tesla coil type of thing to, up the amperage or up the voltage, not the amperage. And then, one of his guys was going up and you test it. And when he fell down, I knew it worked, you know?
Right. And
So,
Bruce, did you go to Jed and say, "I need some kind of security solution on the stairs?"
No, that was
Or Jed,
actually his I yeah, it was actually
yeah,
his idea. Because he's
yeah,
always tinkering stuff, and we're doing a lot of heavy duty security with cameras and lasers
yeah,
and
yeah.
ultrasound and was ultrasound and microwave, all kinds of stuff for security. Because we had military guys that work for me, you know. So and I had as much money as you could want to spend, so I'm building a fort. And so he said, "Bruce, I can electrify this staircase." He goes, "But you gotta make sure." I would get confused. There's amps and there's voltage. One will kill you, the other
the
will not kill
amperage.
you. What's the amperage will kill you. So he said,
Yeah,
"We keep the amperage." He said, "I'll keep the amperage low. I'll turn the volts way up." And I go, "Okay, well, then I want it to arc if they're wearing rain boots, those boots, I want it to be able to arc about 3 feet so it goes above the knee and it knocks them down." And I don't know what it was. There's this. I looked in the closet, downstairs where he hooked it all up. It was this glass. I don't know what electrode or some kind of looked like a big tube. It's still there, all right, but it's not hooked up. Okay, and man, when you turn that thing on, zzz, you didn't want to go anywhere near that thing because you could hear something. You know,
mhm,
So maybe you
yeah,
should leave
I
it
just
on when you and Becky have sex so nobody comes upstairs, right?
or Yeah, he wouldn't have walked up with this 9mm that time.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh God.
So, Jed,
It's
what's
just
the impression? You go to the Ukiah house for the first time. Here's this beautiful fortress, right, on 300 acres. And, hey, this is my brother, right? Was it just like oh my God? Because when I saw it, I was like, holy shit, what is going on here? And I was completely like blown away. Did you just expect it?
I
How did
guess
you
I
feel
just
about
thought it was
the visit?
normal. I just kind of
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, this is Bruce's. This is cool. This is
Did you ever go to
nice.
the dock? Did you ever go to the dock?
No, I've seen it. I think I may have like not when it was not when you were working. Maybe when I was out there, you like took me by to show me the dock. But I think I may have seen it once, but not
And Todd,
been there
he
a
was
lot.
he was used to very, very big houses in Fort Lauderdale, the big rich houses on the water with, with a $10,000 or $5,000 Olympic-sized trampoline in the front yard,
On the
that I
intercoastal.
yeah, with a yacht, like the house we were
Yeah.
at right before we went to college had a 36-foot yacht in the back. The house before that had a 25-foot, speedboat in the back of it. So he saw these, opulent places, all his whole life with me.
Right, right. And why not recruit little brother Jed into the company?
He's a Mensa kid. He's a genius. He has absolutely no common sense. S Sorry to say that, but
It wouldn't have been a good fit for me. He's right. He's right.
Gary and Jed were not a Craig and Bruce. Craig and Bruce were
Yeah.
Z personalities, adrenaline freaks, wild as you can be, and, we fit a certain paradigm, a archetype, the smuggler's archetype. I'm
That's right.
reading all those books out there. That entire shelf is all different smugglers' stories, and we're all the same. Adrenaline junkies. A lot of them did a lot more drugs than I did, but I did my fair share of drugs. A lot of sex, with sex, drugs, and rock and roll in those days.
You know what?
But Jed
Let
and
me
Gary were
use.
more the nerdy, bookie type, and Craig and I were the adventurous type. So he would not have been a good fit for, the
Yeah.
adventurous, swashbuckling, marijuana
Yeah, but
smuggler.
don't you need a guy like Jed in the background, taking care of things, making sure technology is right, electronics are right,
I used to
you
run
know?
around and do errands for him. That was his little gopher guy, his Bobo.
Yeah,
Right.
he did, the big thing he did was the electric staircase. That was his biggest. Did you deal with any of the scanners or any of the electronics that I had?
Some, like frequent, not much because it was kind of boring for me because you scanning and then you get like 5 seconds of them talking and they talk in code and they talk real fast and it's just like it was just to me it was boring, but I mean to your military guys, they knew it, was what they were, was going on, how to talk fast, and to them it was, better. But for me, I mean, when you put a police scanner, I mean, it just goes and it goes. You get bored, and then it hits something, and they talk for about 5 seconds, and that's it. Like you
Right.
know,
And now,
so it
so
was just
Bruce gets
boring.
Bru yeah, Bruce gets busted, um, and then gets sentenced to 9 years in federal prison. What's your reaction to all that?
I was upset. I mean, to me, I didn't understand why marijuana was illegal. I mean, because
Right,
it's like drinking. Why is liquor legal and marijuana is not? So I didn't feel that, like a lot of people at the time, that it should be illegal.
right,
And so I thought it was kind of upsetting. I was like, this is wrong. I wrote a letter to the judge saying, hey, I think when he was going up for parole at one point, I said, Bruce is a great businessman. I would love to be in business with him. Can you please let him out so we can go in business and, yada, 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 like that.
right,
Um,
right.
so, but I got a story I got to tell you. Remember
Please.
Nelson?
Yeah,
Tell
but
him,
no.
tell him who Nelson, give him the back.
After
story of Nelson.
George Dothert, which is in episode 01, got beaten almost to death and by the DEA informants and DEA, and $250,000 was stolen, which is a lot of money in today's dollars. I got Nelson, who was a bodyguard. All right, so he was a hitman for the mob, and I didn't need a hitman, but I did need a bodyguard. So Nelson was my bodyguard. All right, now you can tell the story.
All right. So one day, Bruce tells me, "Hey, you got to go pick up Nelson. His wife is threatening to kill him, and he's told me the story about his wife, who's a hit woman." And I'm like, "Yeah, right, okay." And so I pick up Nelson, and he spends the weekend at the house. He makes me drink with him, um, but I was afraid to say no. So, So, anyways, that was okay. I was a little nervous. Um, so then Nelson took off. He stole some guns and just disappeared. And he was gone for, I don't know, years. Bruce didn't know. I had no idea what happened to him. Right? Is that about right?
Yeah, what he did, he actually stole $30,000, my guns, and I think he took one of the vans and just disappeared, you know?
Yeah. So years later, I'm with a girlfriend going up to take the girlfriend's mother, to Vero Beach, because the wedding for the mother. And I check into a hotel, and it was like off of 95, and it was like so far from where we wanted to go. So I said, "The hell with this. Let's go find another hotel." So we check out of the hotel, and we're driving. We see a little hotel, perfect. Oh, there it is, perfect. So we pull in, and check in, and it's this really weird vibe. It's like, the guy behind the counter is like he looked familiar. Like I thought maybe he was a baseball star, retired baseball star. So, it was kind of weird. So then we go in the room and the phone rings. Okay. And I'm like, what the fuck? Nobody knows we're here. Why is my phone ringing? And so I pick up the phone, and he goes, "Jed, man." I goes, "Who is it?" "It's Nelson." And I'm like, "Oh, fuck. Is he going to hug me, or is he going to shoot me?" So I give the
Right.
keys to my
Right.
car to my girlfriend, and I say, "Hey, if something happens, just get in the car and go." And she's like, "What?" Because she didn't know anything about Bruce. And so then I go in, and there's Nelson and his wife, and she's this, 90-pound, 5-foot woman, who's supposed to be a hit woman. And, he's like, "Hey, everything's cool. We turned ourselves in, we confessed, and they gave us parole, and now we're running this motel for this guy." All right, okay. So I called my girlfriend. I said, "Hey, come on to the office." So he sat down, and she was telling us the story of what happened, that he went down to one of the South American countries. I don't know, if it's
Columbia.
Colombia, and he got shot. And so she goes, you can't smuggle someone from Colombia." She goes, I went down there because, they would kill him in the hospitals down there. They don't know what they're doing. So she goes, "I wanted to get him back into the US. So you can't smuggle someone from Colombia to the US. So what I did is I got him into Mexico. And then once you're in Mexico, it's real easy to get into the US. And then I got him in the US, and we went to
Not
a
anymore.
hospital, and
Right.
I know." So,
Right.
but listening to her, I'm like, holy shit, she's talking like she knows she's not making up a story. She's
Right.
talking with authority. And I'm like, oh my
Right.
God, maybe those stories are true about her. And that was my Nelson story. It was like, it was like a
So
million to
weird.
one
Such a small
shot.
world. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of all the gin
Yeah.
joints in all the world, you got to be in this one. Right.
Yeah. And it was just like, and that when that phone rang, I mean, I'm not surprised much, but when that phone rang, it was like, what? Holy cow. Well, nobody knows I'm here. It was pretty
So
funny.
just a totally random encounter. What would you say the chance of that happening? Maybe to a billion to one? You know, that
Yeah.
or is there
At least.
some invisible, connection that we all have that we just are, as a species, are unaware of at this time in our evolution? Um, I think it's that, because I'm a woo-woo guy.
Yeah. I think it's random. I think everything that happens in our life is random.
I
That's how I
don't
think about it.
Yeah, see, and I think that nothing that happens in our life is random. I think it's all
So that means you believe that everything is destined, right? And so there's a plan. There's some sort of written down plan for each of us.
not that exact, no. I just think there's, like, an energetic field that connects us all and that we are attracted to each other, because when you take LSD and you look at a crowd walking now, this is, I'm going back 40 or 50 years. Unfortunately, I haven't taken any recently, in 40 or 50 years, except when I was in prison. Yeah, that's a different story. And you see all the people walking, and it all looks like choreographed. Like every single person in that field of thing is choreographed. They're moving. There's no accidents. There's no randomness at all. It's all like so. I don't know the answer to that. I don't believe in predestiny, like you just said. I don't believe that's true. I think you can change, and if there is, I believe you can change that with a thought, and go to a different timeline, and and they say every single possibility that can occur is occurring in multiple universes, and in every one of those, there's a billion possibilities occurring, and it's hard to wrap your head around that or your hands around that. Wait, there's a billion possibilities in each one of those. There's a billion possibilities. Each one of those is a billion. It's like this ever expanding, multidimensional parallel universe thing going on that we just don't know about. You know,
Right, right, but as we make decisions, we're only dealing with that one possibility, right? So, as we make that decision, that's what the consequences are from, right? Whatever that decision is. And like
yes,
you're right, you can change it, and you could always make another decision, right, and change the position. But, yeah, of all the billions of things that you're talking about, we deal with them one at a time, and that's why I think everything's random. It's just it's a spin of the wheel. It's if you stay in bed 10 seconds longer than you usually do and you don't trip over the cat, right? Is that fate or is that just because it happened?
it's a very good question, and I don't think the language that we have currently can describe that kind of thing,
Oh,
because
that's
now
an
you're getting
interesting
into
answer.
quantum
Yeah,
mechanics, and there's just no
yeah,
words
yeah.
for it, and, I'm always learning, and this is a new thing. Jed, what do you think? You've been into
That's a I
You're
used
a
to
big
wait,
thinker.
yeah. So I used to think all the his woo-woo stuff was a bunch of BS. It was all stupid stuff. And like, these people that go, "Oh, I'm gonna study your frequency," and but the more I start hearing about quantum mechanics, like quantum entanglement, and I'm starting to think about how does quantum entanglement work. You have two part. Are you familiar with quantum entanglement?
No, I'm
How,
not.
I
So
am,
please
yeah.
explain it.
okay,
Yeah.
so what it is, you have two particles, and they call it entangled, so that they communicate with each other. So if one is spinning this way, the other one is spinning the opposite way, and if you turn one the other way, the other one will react immediately, no matter how far apart they are. And, it's just like, that can't happen because you can't travel faster than the speed of light. And so it's like impossible. So I'm thinking, well, okay, they've proven quantum entanglement, but it can't go faster than light. So how could it happen? Well, multi-dimension. So if you have one is in one dimension, one's in another dimension, and they happen to be together in, the dimensions are next to each other. It doesn't matter how physically far they are, they're connected through some other dimension and they're right next to each other via that dimension. So I know I'm not really explaining this very well, but
No, no, I think
it
it's no,
starts
I think it makes
me
sense, but I do believe that we do live in different dimensions for sure, and we're all on possibly different timelines, also.
yeah. So
So,
a lot of the woo woo stuff that he talks about, I'm starting to wonder if, it's not woo-woo, but there's a physical explanation to a lot of it. Um, and like multi-dimension or multi-universe, and like what he was saying about the billion, I thought, oh, that's crazy because there's infinite number of possibilities and universes.
Yeah.
But maybe that's true. Maybe, because like we don't know what's beyond. What they're saying now is that the universe is expanding faster than the speed of light. So there's stuff out there you'll never know about because you
Yeah.
can't observe it.
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
Which
and
is
I was coming to a
pretty
point.
significant for a monkey to be able to think like that.
That is
Yeah.
totally true. That is totally true. That just shows you that it really is evolution that happened, and Darwin was right. Right. Because
So,
look what Jed
anyways,
evolved
yeah,
into.
there's all these things that are happening that they're learning in quantum mechanics that can possibly explain Bruce's woo-woo stuff,
Right, right, right.
you know?
All they
Bruce,
need to
anything
do
else you want to talk to Jed about? Any more woo-woo stuff or
Well, no, what I wanna do is I wanna show a picture. That is the magic wizard, which we talked about in a different episode. That is a table that I made in 1974. Alright, and Alan from, the lawyer, when we used the alibi defense that I was at the Magic Woodsman, so I couldn't be in Florida. That table was made in 1974. That's Aubrey, my little son, and that is at Jed's house to this day. So
Yep,
that's
it's in
awesome.
my living room. I can turn the
That's awesome.
camera around and show it to you.
We
But I
had
won't.
you should send me a picture of it. We'll put it in the show so to show everybody. But yeah, we had one in our living room, and we had a clock. We had a clock on the
Yeah.
wall, and we had our dining room table was a redwood table.
Well, here's a scoop. How about this? The Magic Woodsman is being re-energized. Frank is bringing truckloads of wood down to the Dolan Springs house. Craig and Frank are going to, and me, when I get out there, are going to be making tables, and we're actually launching the Magic Woodsman once again after literally 52 years.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, we will look forward to that. And maybe Jed the Genius can maybe help you set up some books or some AI technology to make your life easier at the Magic Woodsman that it was. Jed, hey, it was lots of fun catching up and hearing the old stories from the marijuana smuggling days. Thanks a lot for joining us. Anything
Oh,
else you want
thanks
to
for
add
having me.
about growing up as the Duke of Pot as a monkey. Right.
Do you still
So
like to climb trees?
Not as much as I used to. It's funny because now I realize I can fall out and break something.
yeah, that's what happens
When
when
you're younger, man, you just like you don't think about that stuff. But now,
that's right.
I
That's right.
use ladders mostly now.
Yeah, good thinking. Good thinking. Well, Bruce, once again, thanks for another great episode on becoming the King of Pot. And thank you for watching. He is Bruce Perlowin, that other handsome gentleman. That's Jed Perlowin, the little baby Perlowin. And I'm Todd Dangan, and we're all cousins. And this is Becoming the King of Pot. We'll see you next time.